thank everyone for coming this evening to the book signing for Journey to the Sun. I'm so happy to be here and honored that you would join us this evening. And I want to say thank you to my mother, Ella Colleen Carlisle, just for supporting me and stop talking trash, Mom, and loving me through this entire journey. So it has been quite the journey. And so I want to start off by, some of you have read the book and some have not. So I want to start off by just reading a very short chapter in the book. And this chapter is kind of the turning point in the relationship between my son and his birth mother. It's called The Attack. It's chapter 15. If you happen to have the book, you can read along with me. And I will tell you it's a very emotional chapter for me to read. But I'm reading it to you because it's important that I just share with you the real story of our relationship and the importance of my son to me, and just how important, from my perspective, my child was and is to me. So I'll go ahead and get started. It starts on page 97. Chapter 15, The Attack. Now, I may curse, but I'll just use MF instead of since my mom. I do curse from other places, just so you know. Turn this MFing car around. That's Montoya, her voice shaking through the interior of my car with venom. Montoya, her voice dripping with an almost disgusted impatience. She was mad about something. Probably money, and Devin was in the back seat, silent, watchful. I see us in the car, our mouths working, eyebrows furrowed in anger. But what about, I don't know. I'm experiencing the scene in bursts, like static from a TV with a loose antenna. I can see the picture, but the resolution is off. I can only intuit that something is different, and I'm powerless to change the channel. I see Montoya raise her hand quicker than I've ever seen her move, and feel the force of her backhand smashing my teeth against, my lips against my teeth before I've even registered what she's done. Through my driving, I see us look at each other in horror and surprise, our expressions reflections of one another. Oh my God, you hit me. Oh my God, I hit you. We're locked in the truth of our relationship now, and with the eyes of my soul, I see us both acknowledge that change is on the horizon. We cannot continue on from here. I can no longer be the abused. I can no longer be the enabler. Miss Carla, I'm sorry. She says to me from what feels like a great distance. Her features warped from tears I cannot stop seem contrite. I know we have some place to be, but a feeling hot and prickly up and down the surface of my skin urges me to pull over. I'm too stunned to drive any further. I still haven't spoken as I'm not quite sure what to say. I don't know whether to fight or flee, but I feel strongly that I need to leave the car. The car isn't safe. I'm not safe. I'm not safe. It's the first time I really let the thought sink into my brain. Every day I'm with these people, I'm putting myself and my child in danger. I am not safe. I can't help the tears that find their way down my cheeks, the anger, humiliation, and fear associated with being slapped like a child in front of my son digs into my soul with heat, with shame. No wonder he didn't respect me. Through my passivity, I taught him that love and compassion were weaknesses easily slapped down by the person with the loudest voice. He didn't see nothing, Miss Carla. Montoya insisted as I unsnapped my seatbelt, fumbling with the door handle. needing to get out of the car. He didn't see, he don't know. She repeated, chirping like a bird at dawn. I could hear the fear in her voice. A woman that lived to push boundaries and bully others to get her way understood that she'd overstepped. With each passing minute, her hold on me was slipping. And though I'm sure it wasn't her intention, that slap woke me up. I stepped out of the car, the driver's door shut firmly behind me, and I dropped to my knees. I didn't know what else to do. I had done everything, had tried everything, and I was lost. Please. I prayed silently, tears running down my bruised cheeks and swollen lip. Lord, please. And there in the parking lot of a store I can't remember, I gave up. And that was the beginning of the end of our relationship. So let me give you some context to this, and everybody can kind of take a deep breath. Let's exhale for a minute, because it was as intense as it sounds, and probably more. So I met my son in 2010 when he was 10 days old. I was his foster parent. He was a premature baby boy. He was the 11th son of his birth mother, and she had lost her parental rights to the other 10. When I decided to become a foster parent, I had exhausted pretty much every other path to becoming a mother. I was married. My husband and I had gone through in vitro fertilization and had become pregnant, and I miscarried. We divorced, and I decided to become a foster parent at the urging of one of my good friends. When I got the call about my son, I thought, I don't think I want to foster a newborn, let alone a premature newborn. But before that, I had received calls about siblings, and 2, 3, and 4 siblings, and I wasn't sure if I could handle that, and something just called me to this child. And I said, how long do I have to think about it? And they said, now. So I said, okay, and I stopped at Target, and I picked up a car seat and some preemie clothes, and I went to, in Charlotte, the Beans Children's Hospital, and I picked up this little amazing, beautiful, big-eyed, brown baby boy, and I fell in love. And my mom came and my sister came, and we just started rocking and rolling, and that was just that. My company was so supportive, and for 6 months it was exhausting, but like heaven. And then on a regular court date, social services said, don't worry about it, it's a regular court date. Next thing I know, I got this call and said he's going back to his mom. And I said, what are you talking about? Like, I knew enough to know that she was not prepared to take care of him. And I also had learned enough that from a mental health standpoint, she could not take care of him. I was still learning. I didn't know really anything about mental health at that point. I mean, I knew just a few little things, but not enough. And so I decided to give up my foster license, and for the next 6 tumultuous years, we tried to co-parent together. I think it took a week or 2 before I called her, maybe, and she picked up immediately. And we did try in our way to co-parent. But between mental health and drug abuse, things just got worse over time. And I learned so much. I can tell you it was probably the most humbling experience of my life. And I saw my son getting much worse. He went from this sweet little boy to an obese, angry child. He was physically abusive, and he saw a lot of physical violence. It was domestic violence, drugs, you name it. But I had a lot of compassion for his birth mother, because I also learned about the generational trauma that she experienced. So in other words, The people who were there to take care of her did not. And what I learned was that the people who were supposed to take care of them, in other words, their parents, probably didn't know how to take care of them either. So it was something that was passed down from one generation to the next. And I have to say, being here at home, it just brings back so many fond memories of things that I took for granted, of having the love and support of my parents, and not understanding that I knew not everyone had the same upbringing I had, but I had no idea what it was like to have to protect yourself from your own parents. What it was like to not be able to sleep at night for fear of what might happen to you, to not have enough food on the table, or to not know where your next meal was going to come from, or where you were going to lay your head. And so as I learned more, my heart just went out to her, and I tried to help. And I learned that the help that I was giving was probably enabling. Like, I bought a house, I put them in it, I filled the house with food and all these material things and what I thought was love, but it was, when you give someone these things, like the food, clothing, and shelter, and they don't know what to do with it, it just gets destroyed. Because we were building a house on quicksand. Mm-hmm. And so I just learned so much, and I was just humbled beyond belief. So what I will say to you is this. That slap was the first wake-up call. And then when my son, when he was 5, he threatened to commit suicide. And he had heard this from his birth mom many times. She has a mental health condition, and 1 in 5 people have a mental health condition. And I can tell you, through this experience, I was diagnosed with situational depression and anxiety. And my mom can tell you my anxiety is real. And it is real, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. And I can also say I am very much an advocate about mental health, because there's nothing that we can do about it if we ignore it, or if we just say, I'm going to pray on it. I am a believer in prayer with works. When my son attempted suicide twice when he was 6 years old, I didn't think about stigma. I thought about this. My son is going to live. And he's not just going to live, he's going to thrive. And so once I got emergency custody of him, which I had to hire a private attorney in order to do so, and that's what I did. It's like by any means necessary, because this is my baby. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, I lost a lot of friends over this, because they said, just go get another one. Mm-hmm. No ma'am, this is my baby. And my baby is going to be okay. Just like my mom would go up to Bon Air or whatever school I was in to make sure I was okay, I was going to do the same thing. And my baby was going to be okay. And so he went from a 170-pound angry child who was inpatient at behavioral health, who took 2 men who were about 300 pounds each to hold down, because he didn't want me to leave him. And that was the hardest thing ever, but I knew he needed to be in there. He was diagnosed, by the way, with post-traumatic stress disorder and probably 4 other diagnoses. Walking away from him and leaving him in behavioral health after these 2 suicide attempts was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. But it was the right thing to do, because he needed help. And getting restraining orders against his parents, it was difficult because I felt for them. However, his safety came first, and he couldn't be safe if I wasn't safe. So we went from emergency custody to temporary custody to permanent custody, and in October of 2018, the adoption was finalized. And Jamonte, I'm telling you all because you are family, is now a Carlisle, and I'm back to Carlisle too. All right. I just wanted to say to my Kokomo family, thank you so much. Wayman, my mom's church group, has prayed for us. Now I'm spitting into the microphone. Y'all got me here. Has prayed for us just from the time I brought him home from the hospital when he was 10 days old and 2 months premature. And I had to do this event just to say thank you. It means the world to me. And he is now he still has his moments, because a post-traumatic stress disorder is not something you just get over. He still has his moments. I did have to restrain him as recent as 2 weeks ago, but it was the first time in about 4 months. And it rarely happens. Since we've been home, I mean, he's been on best behavior, right? He's been very courteous and kind and helpful. He's an awesome kid. He's on the AB honor roll. But things we don't notice about, like post-traumatic stress disorder or other mental health issues or illnesses, is the impact it can have to the total body. So my son is on the AB honor roll, but he just learned how to tie his shoes last year. I can tell you that it is difficult for me to sleep through the night because I lived my life in hypervigilance mode for about 8 years. So we are both healing together. And again, I'm just so thankful. And if I had to change anything, I probably wouldn't, because I'm a much better person because of it. Anytime anyone says he's so lucky to have you, I tell them I am a much better person because of him. And I'm thankful. And the last thing I will share with you is when I stopped trying to control everything and I let God take over.
That's right. Amen.
He led me. So I'm a big believer in prayer with works. So I will answer any questions, and then we can just celebrate, do whatever we want to do from there. If there are any questions, and I know my cousin Mike said questions, I hope I can answer them. Yes, sir.
Yeah, there was a race when you first released the book, was when you first wanted to finish it. I think I was second, because I was reading electronically on my phone. But I couldn't sleep. I'd go from chapter to chapter, knowing you as a teenager and seeing what you was going through. Is he on medication now?
Yes. Yes.
And that helps?
So he's on medication, and he's gone from, he's on a significantly lower dosage of medication than he was. He is still on medication. I am on medication. We're both on lower dosages of medication, but he may be on medication for a lifetime, or he may be off medication. It just depends, but we do very creative things like music therapy, which is awesome. He does occupational therapy. He plays tackle football. That's very therapeutic for him. The therapy is very helpful. Like I said, he went from inpatient to partial hospitalization to intensive in-home therapy. He goes to therapy once a week now. But I believe that if we need medication, we should take it.
Yeah.
But I have also pursued like a homeopathic medication, because he also had exposure to a lot of toxins, like mold and other things. They were living in one house that had so many mice in it that a snake showed up. There was one house that had 2 refrigerators that basically the landlord just threw them away. They were really bad. So he was exposed to a lot. So I've pursued different avenues to see, but most of this is trauma related, but if there are other things that are impacting him, then I want to address those as well. Did I over answer your question?
No, you
Because I tend to do that. Okay. Yes.
Is he in a special classroom, so when he has these outbursts and things like that?
Mm-hmm. So he is in a what they call a contained classroom. He's in an exceptional children's program. However, He spends half of his time in the regular classroom and half of his time in the contained classroom, and the goal is for him to go full-time in the regular classroom. And when he does, so his first several years was in a Christian school. My goal would probably be to take him out of the mainstream school system and put him back into a private school, because he does better in small classroom settings at that point.
Another thing I was wondering, like, do you have sensory things around the house just to kind of
Yes.
help him? Because,
Yes.
you know, they have like,
He
like the little bubbles and the fish.
He has everything, and he pays attention to it for about 2 minutes, and then that's it. I mean, he does like them, like the little stress balls, and he has the spinners, and he has the bubble things, and he has everything. What he likes the most is, he does really well with redirection, and he likes the get down to his level, eye-to-eye contact, and that is the best way to get him to move forward before he even gets into a zone. But he no longer gets into those episodes where once he gets in, he won't get out. That's really far behind us at this point.
And it sounds like it is because, you know, I'm sure that he was in therapy more than once a week.
Oh, no, he was in, yeah. He was inpatient, and then he was partial hospitalization, which was every
And
day.
then grew
Yes,
and
Yes.
2 and 3 times a week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like he's doing really well because now he's down to,
once a week, yes.
right. And then at school, do they allow, I know that his teacher knows how to deal with things.
Yes, but he's not, I mean, he's like the kid in class now who calms everybody down.
Oh, boy.
Guys, we have to obey the teacher. This is how we get in line. His biggest thing now is like, I want to be the caboose versus, the front of the, he's good now. Yeah,
So he's like the rule follower.
yes. He's back to, well, I shouldn't say he's back to where he was, because he's a different kid now, but yes. So, Nina?
Just a real quick question. So one of the things that you mentioned when you started was he's the 10th?
11.
So
yes.
there's still a relationship with
No.
him and the siblings?
No, when I became his foster parent, I asked about a relationship with the siblings, and social services said no. There were 3 children in care at the time. The one that was 2 years older than him passed away due to a medical condition from his mother's drug abuse. The other 2 had so much trauma that they were not in a position where they wanted him to be exposed. And the older children that had aged out had continued in the cycle. So they did not want any
Does he ask about
contact.
him?
He knows them now because he was exposed to them once he went to his birth mom and dad. So he'll mention them from time to time. I mean, he'll mention his birth parents from time to time, and we'll talk about good memories and things like that. We'll sing like gospel songs they sang together, and then he'll end up saying something about something really dangerous that happened after or something like that. So we try to focus on good memories, or like I put together a book of pictures of us together, happy memories and things like that. So we talk more about, they're not well versus saying, I don't say anything negative about them. There was another question.
I'm just curious, are you gonna let him read the book? Is he gonna read the book?
So let me just tell you that he has said that his name should be right. So he wants credit on the book. And when I went to so I do this, I don't know if you all have it here in Kokomo yet or not, but the law enforcement and first responders do this crisis intervention team training. Have you all heard of that? So basically, it's training law enforcement, excuse me, and all first responders, sheriff department or sheriff's office, how to respond when someone is in a mental health or drug crisis. I think Dana Galt, who's in the back, hey cousin, they're just getting ready to start up in Marion. And so I'll participate in those trainings in Charlotte, in the Mecklenburg County. And so my son knows that I do this, and he knows that I go out and speak and things. So he wanted to go sit on the panel with me to speak at this CIT training is what it's called. And I said no, he couldn't come. So he wrote out what he wanted me to tell them. And so I can tell you, because I have it memorized, it's very short what he wanted me to tell them. He wanted me to say that he's been through a lot. He said he's been through murdering threats, but he has his brothers and his mom, and we play outside, and now he feels safe. And that was his testimony that he wanted me to share with them. And by the way, when he was at his toughest, I actually did have to call a CIT officer. You can ask for them specifically, and they came, and they are there to de-escalate, not to arrest anyone. They immediately de-escalated the situation, and I had the same officer who came twice, and he's like, I know this lady, I know what she's doing, and it happened early on when, I first got custody, and it was awesome. So they're volunteers at this point. Some of them are voluntold, but most of them are volunteers. And I'll take a couple more questions, but I want people to really mix and mingle as well. Yes?
Does the birth mother try to contact you at all?
She used to. I have restraining orders. She does not want to go back to jail because she did violate the restraining orders a couple of times. We've moved. I've changed vehicles. I resumed my maiden name. My house is not under my name. And the main thing is that she doesn't want to go to jail. The thing again, I just want to really emphasize this. I do have a lot of compassion for her, and I want her to get help. So what I have done is, the last time that I did CIT training, which was just a couple of weeks ago, they had someone who came in to speak about chronic homelessness. And I spoke to one of the folks who they go out and speak to. I think Charlotte has about 450 people who are considered in that category of chronically homeless. And so I shared with them where I knew they were the last time, which is where she was actually served a warrant for her arrest for violating the restraining order against me. They were living in a car in a parking lot of like an AutoZone in this certain area of town, which is known to be a high drug traffic area. And, my prayer is that they both get help and that they get better. And I just pray that for them, but we just can't have any contact. And she has no way of contacting me unless it would be through social media. And like I said, she knows when she has clear moments, she knows that would mean she would end up getting arrested.
Cousin, I gotta ask you something. I don't know, I just wonder, when a person has 10 children or 11 children, and they're, not living in a home of her, why wasn't this child that, you have this problem if you could?
So this was really difficult for me, and what's really interesting is in the United States it's one judge, one family. So when I went back to get the termination of parental rights, I had to go before the judge who gave my son back to his birth mother. And I had never seen her, but I knew her name. I had actually blocked her name out of my mind, and as soon as I saw her name, it literally felt like someone punched me in the stomach. And when I saw her, it's like the whole 8 years just came rushing back at me. And we actually had ended the book at permanent custody, and then we added to the book. because I wanted to tell the whole story. We were done at permanent custody, but I thought it was important to share that part. The judge gave him back because his birth mother was in the hospital for 2 months before she gave birth. And what that meant was that he did not have cocaine in his bloodstream. He had cocaine in his, I probably will pronounce it wrong, but meconium stool, and it was not considered legally significant. And so because of that, and because social services did not bring in their experts to explain to the judge that having cocaine in the stool meant prolonged use of cocaine, he was given to his birth mother. So that was a mistake. Now what I will say is this, and so this is the silver lining in all of this. My company gave me, this isn't the silver lining, this was a good thing. My company gave me 4 months off after my son's adoption. Not just me, but this is a company policy. And during that 4 months, I was able to do a lot of things. One of the things I did was I went to Court College in Mecklenburg County, and I was able to, with a clearer head, learn about the court system. A little clearer head. And so one of the people who was there was this same judge. And it turns out that she is the person who leads trauma initiatives for the juvenile justice system for Mecklenburg County. She has experienced her own trauma. Someone pulled me aside and said, I can't get into details, but I can tell you she understands trauma now. She may not have understood it in 2010, but she understands it now. So, I mean, that's, I just say, look at God, That's all I can say.
Hi, I just want to say thank you for being here and welcome. I do want to say about the CIT training for Howard County. That's been something that I've built a group that's sort of been advocating that for Kokomo.
Yes.
Specifically, it hasn't been met with a lot of enthusiasm, and I know that happens across the country. But just for us that are in this room, that's something that we can put pressure on the incoming government. Is that we have to have officers trained and community members that are trained. Because we have case after case of people who have lost their lives because of mental health issues.
That's right.
Not because they're criminals.
That's right.
Not because, my uncle was killed by someone who had mental health issue. And my family was not angry. We were angry because there was no officer that was there to help de-escalate.
That's
But
right.
only escalated the issue. So I just want to put that out there that we can be a part of that. We can come and ask that question.
Yes.
We have people who are running for office right now. Ask that question: What's the plan for CIT?
That's right.
What's the plan for dealing with mental health issues in our community? And understanding most of the time it's who's being targeted.
That's
And
right.
who's being targeted when there's a mental health issue
Right.
versus who's getting blamed.
That's right. It is so important that officers are trained and understand how to de-escalate. If they don't understand it, they end up escalating. And I'll give you an example. And you don't have to raise your hands, but I would say if you know someone who has autism, the last thing you do if they are excited is put your hands on them. That is going to escalate. We do this panel and we talk about our own experiences. There are people who have trauma in their background, drug abuse in their background. Typically that is a result of some type of trauma. And they go through these experiences and they visit places and they learn. And they also learn about taking care of themselves because they experience a lot of trauma as well. Self-care is important for the police who are supposed to protect and serve. And so I am such a big fan. Whenever there is a CIT training, I participate. That they do role play exercises and I am right there. right there doing it with them, because if not, I know my son is a big kid. He's tall, he's a big kid, he's going to be a big adult. I can't say what might happen or what might have happened had he not had some intervention. And I don't want him to be another statistic. I don't want anyone's kid or father, brother, sister, mother to be another statistic. So I'm with you. And I'll support you 100%, anything I can do to help. I'll take like one more question and then let's mix and mingle.
Why was the birth mother so interested in this child?
She was interested in all of her children, but I think in a different way than probably many of us might think. For her, a child was someone to love her unconditionally because she had not experienced that love. And I think that was the best she was ever treated, was when she was pregnant by other people. So she tried to get all of her children back when they were taken. From her perspective, she made bad choices in men, and she experienced a lot of domestic violence. But I also think it's just important to look at it more so this way. And I used to say this, but I didn't really know what I was talking about. When you have a mental illness, like she has bipolar disorder, and she's had a lot of, experienced a lot in terms of drug abuse and that kind of thing, and on and off of medication, her brain has been severely damaged. What might be logical to you is not going to be logical to her. So her thought pattern is going to be different than yours. So to her, the more children she has, the more love she's going to get. So it's just a very different way of thinking. And I came to understand how she thought. I mean, I'm not saying I fed into it, but I understood that her life was very different, and I have no idea how I would have turned out if I had the same life she had. I'm just thankful that I had the upbringing that I did. Very thankful and humbled. So, well, thank you all so much for being here and for your love and support. Thank you, and for your prayers for my son and me. I really appreciate it.
I got here late, can you start over?
Yeah.
I